sign up. So we ended up shifting to this webinar situation. So if you eat popcorn while you're watching the movie, we won't see you. But you are going to have the opportunity to chat and to also ask some questions. And I'm going to go over that in just a second. This is an awesome movie. It's really inspirational. And we really do want to hear some feedback and some of your thoughts too. And we are more than excited to have this amazing youth panel to talk about their impressions and what they think and how they are moving forward and where climate change plays a role in their world. So I'm going to get the logistics out of the way first. And number one, if you guys look at your Zoom, whether or not you are familiar with Zoom, at the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see a Q&A, and that is where you can put questions in, and our panelists will see them, and I will be monitoring them, Megan will be monitoring them, and so will Emily, so that we will make sure we get them all. If we don't get to answering your questions, like I said a few minutes ago, if you were listening, then we will make sure that we have them later and send them out to our youth, and they can answer them, or we can answer them, and we'll have them on our website. We just don't want to keep you until midnight. There's also a chat section on your bottom of your screen. You'll see a screen for chat. If you open that up, down at the bottom, you will see something that says to all panelists. If you push that down arrow, you can do all panelists and attendees, or you can do all panelists. And you can kind of, this is an area while you're watching the movie, if you want to leave the webinar open, you're welcome to type in a few things like, hey, in our town we're doing this, or this is really exciting, or wow, I didn't have any idea. Whatever your reactions are, you're welcome to type them in there, and we will all see them. The second thing is, I was going to say, to leave the webinar open. We can't see you, so it's all good. We'll probably all turn our videos off while we're watching, but if we leave the chat open, it leaves it open for conversation in case anybody wants to have that. You're also welcome to turn the webinar off and then come back to us. And we will post the link very shortly in the chat. You need that link in order to see the movie, and you'll need the password that goes with it. And we're going to post that in the chat, but not quite yet. So if you want to save a little bit of time, even though you can go back and look at the credits of who did the movie, you can start at 1:17 seconds, and that will start you right at the very first part of the movie. So about KCI really quickly, we are a nonpartisan solutions-based organization, and we are building a groundswell of grassroots movement by educating about and empowering youth voice for climate action. We know how important it is to engage these youth voices in this crisis. They are a huge part of our solution, and they have ideas that we may not have thought of yet, and they're facing this every day. So we want to make sure that we're empowering them to speak and empowering their ideas and their action to move forward. I encourage you guys to all go to our website, which is kportclimate.org, and that will get put into the chat. Let's see, Emily, would you mind putting that into the chat so everybody has it? We encourage you to go there. You can sign up to be in our network, whether you are an adult ally or a youth that's looking to get more active. And 2021 is going to be amazing with a lot going on, so we hope that you do that. Also, you can join our social media channels at We Are KCI, and Emily and Megan are our communications divas, and I will tell you that they decided they are so close to hitting a milestone on Instagram. So the next, I think it's what, 25 people who sign up to get us to 500, one of them will be drawn for a $25 gift certificate. And as an added incentive for you guys, because we really want to make sure that our audience comes back to hear the panel and to really be involved in the conversation. So we are going to pick 3 random attendees from the people who rejoin, and they will each receive a gift card as well, a $25 gift card. And that's going to be announced at the end of the forum. So we hope that you join us back, and you might be one of the lucky winners. I want to take a few seconds for these amazing young people to introduce themselves. They're just going to give you their name, where they are, if they are just graduated from school or if they're still in school. So name and age and school. If you want to give us your major, if you're in college, feel free to do so. I'm going to start off with Pooja.
Hi everyone, my name is Pooja Tilvawala and I'm based in a suburb of Philadelphia. I went to school at American University, studied economics and international studies. Thanks for joining us. And I'll popcorn, should I popcorn? And I'm gonna popcorn it to Xander.
Hi, I'm Xander. I'm 20. I go to the University of New England, and I'm majoring in environmental science with a minor in GIS. So I guess I'll popcorn it to Olivia.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivia. I am a senior at Kennebunk High School. Yeah.
And let's go to Anya.
Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone. My name's Anya Wright. I am up in Bar Harbor. I just graduated from College of the Atlantic this June with a major in human ecology, and I'm currently working with Sierra Club Maine doing grassroots climate organizing, and happy to be here. I will pass it to Sadie.
Hi, I'm Sadie. I'm a junior at Kennebunk High School, and I will pass it to Karina.
Hi, I'm Corinna. I'm a senior at Kennebunk High School, and I'm gonna popcorn it to Mitchell.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mitchell Hennings. I'm 22. I'm a fourth-year senior at University of New England. I'm graduating with a degree in environmental science, and I'm currently at my home in Cape Cod. Kind of, I'm not gonna get specific, but I will popcorn it to Amelia.
Hi, my name is Amelie, and I'm 15, a sophomore in high school out of Boulder, Colorado.
Awesome. So these are some amazing young voices that I can't wait to hear the conversation. And they haven't even met each other, a lot of them. So it's going to be good.
Where I live right now, we have a lot of lawsuits going on with the energy companies about having our own power grids in our community. So I thought that was really interesting just to see that going on in other places and them doing it successfully. I guess, Olivia, do you have like any favorite parts of the documentary that you really enjoyed or you learned about?
I guess for me, I've seen it before, but it's like just seeing it again, the weight of it stands. Like I still find things out of it that excite me. And personally, like with aquaculture and the introduction of seaweed and all of its like applications, I know I saw a webinar over the summer about seaweed and how it could be introduced into cows' diets, and which would reduce the methane gas released in their burps, which I just think it's so interesting how interconnected all of the issues could be, and that a solution here can be a solution in a different aspect. Sadie, I don't know if you have any preliminary thoughts.
Yeah, I thought the marine permaculture was super interesting. Like I'd never really heard of that before. I've always thought of carbon sequestration as more of something pertaining to like the land and the soil. So that was really cool to me. The way they use seaweed for that. Karina, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, oh, sorry. I just thought the film was a really great example of, say, like this utopia future that has been represented in all these films that we've seen. Like you see the electric cars, the self-driving ones, the renewable energy, and like if you think back on what you saw as like younger child, or some older generations might think back to films that they've seen or media that went around, and you've seen that like you go into the future and everything is clean like this. And I thought that this film showed that and showed how we could get there, and that was really inspiring to me. Xander, do you have anything else to add about what you enjoyed from the film?
Just kind of going off what everybody else has said, I enjoyed the film's optimism immensely. I think the director really was able to draw away from the doom and gloom that we constantly hear about climate change, or we're destroying everything, nothing's going to be the same. I'm from New York City, and we have a giant countdown clock now in Union Square, which is 7 years before there's no reversible damage. But so I enjoyed his optimism immensely, and I especially liked his thoughts on self-driving cars, and just the fact of of how much space cars really take up. I really never thought of highways and parking lots as really taking all that amount of space up. You know, it's just one of those things that's always been there, and you've never really thought could change. And then we brought up what could be done with that space, and that 3 small cities could fit into Los Angeles or something like that. It's really, really pretty amazing stuff. So that's what I think, at least. So Mitch, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just thought it was pretty, I think it's interesting to see how we're gonna try and change people's ideas on the idea of like freedom and how that's related to the vehicle. And it's been ingrained in us for so long, where like it's gonna be pretty difficult, I think, to do something like that. But I think if we create more jobs through repurposing like concrete areas like the parking lots and stuff like that, and we create more jobs through changing the landscape from what it has been, and then we add more of that transportation aspect that really like brings more rural communities in, because like we see a lot of like city planning and stuff that has been like worked around the car, the single-use vehicle. So I think that it's going to take a lot of like municipal planning and a lot of new ideas in local governments for that type of automated driving to like work. Yeah. What else in the film? Any other things like besides the permaculture with the seaweed, or like besides driverless cars? Like, did anybody see anything else that was pretty interesting? Or
I really thought that the quote he sort of opened up in his introduction, which was fact-based dreaming, it just really stood out to me, because I think a lot of us are like, we're all here, we all want to help climate change, and we're all optimistic about coming into the future, but I oftentimes see in social media not everybody is realistic with what we are doing and like what's happening. So that just really stood out to me about like how we can still all be dreamers, but still also make our dreams based on facts.
Yeah, and to add to, I oftentimes get really frustrated with movies like this because they're like too optimistic, and I actually was like pleasantly surprised with this film, that the solutions that he talked about were very much rooted in science, and then also hopeful in terms of community building and bettering the lives of all people, and like recognizing that the systems that we're using right now like don't include everyone, and so I like especially really liked that he put so much emphasis on the empowerment of young women. So I loved that. And I also saw a question in the chat about marine permaculture projects in Maine. And I know there are a lot of projects, and I don't know if anyone on the panel like wants to speak more to that, but I think, you know, there's a lot of room for growth in that sector. I have a close friend on Bar Harbor that is actually working on an oyster farm that started a few years ago. That's actually coincidentally all women run. But so, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for change globally and then also really locally too, which is exciting.
To answer that question in the chat, the webinar that I saw was actually from Bigelow Laboratories, which is up in Boothbay Harbor in Maine. And they are the ones that are doing the permaculture / aquaculture regarding the methane gas. So that's right here locally in Maine, which is pretty cool.
So I just want to really quickly ask you guys, there's a couple of questions out there. One is, the film talked a little bit about the anxiety youth feel at times due to the future of climate change. What gives you hope and feeling like you can take action on climate change? It's a great question. Who wants to go first?
I can talk too.
Okay, Corinna, or Emily, yeah.
I think seeing stuff like this happening and seeing a lot of people get engaged, especially youth, and it seems like we have a lot of people from like all ages kind of here, and that's kind of nice too. So I think communication among generations, that's definitely a really hopeful thing to see.
Corinna, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think that with social media, it does have a lot of negative connotations, but there's so much there's so much benefit there. We have a way to connect to our whole community in a different way that no other generation has had before. And like Emily stated, that does give me hope, because it seems that a lot of our generation is passionate about this and cares about what's going to happen to our planet.
Another thing that's important is to increase the relatability factor of climate change and kind of localize the issue. So for youth, showing them that even in their own backyard, there are problems that they can identify and help solve with the help of their peers and neighbors, and seeing that it's really possible at a local level or individual level even.
One question that was asked also was, what are some of your own personal goals to contribute to combating climate change in 2021? Anyone want to grab that one?
I guess I can start off. Well, since I'm a KCI ambassador, so some of my goals are just to start up like a little coalition where I live, because KCI is definitely a lot more like East Coast oriented right now. So my goal is to bring KCI to my hometown and just start spreading like the message that I feel really passionate about and work closely with to spread with KCI.
Xander and Mitchell, I'd love to hear from you guys as getting ready to graduate and move on.
Something that I would do to try and combat climate change, which I think everybody can do, you can start to learn about different invasives, because invasive plants are like a really huge thing that occurs with climate change and disturbances in the environment that can happen in your backyard, on the side of roads, near development areas, and even in conserved areas that are all over southern Maine. And I think it's really important to recognize what invasives are near you so that we can start managing them and taking care of them to produce more biodiversity and bring back the natural habitat that plants and animals have grown up in the southern Maine area. And we can just make it a much more healthier environment. And I think that that's something that I would do. And Xander, I don't know, what would you do?
So I guess, well, now that you bring it up that I'll be graduating in a year, I've kind of been thinking the one thing that I'm excited about to kind of become an adult, I guess, is that I'll finally have some sort of stability. I'll be able to I don't really know what the plan is, but I'll be able to live somewhere for an extended period of time. And that kind of, I've been thinking about really doing things like starting my own garden and and harvesting my own food, that sort of thing. So I think that's really, when I think of what we can do to combat climate change, that's the kind of the number one thing that comes to my mind, is especially like basically just harvesting your own food. And then you can get into the whole conversation about plant-based diets, this and that. And I feel like even if you really do want to eat meat, you can sustainably do that in your own backyard, and rather than get it from a factory farm or something like that. So I think that's one thing that I really think could help combat climate change. I don't know who if I want to popcorn that to anybody else, so you can, yeah.
Well, I think just going off what he said, it's the little things that like you can choose yourself. And I know that like some people scoff at like the metal straw like craze and like reusable cups and recycling and all those types of things. But I think like just taking that tiny bit of effort, that one little extra step, and if everyone did that, like it would have tremendous outcomes globally. Like I just personally think like it's the little things that you can do yourself that'll help, which also adds to the anxiety question, because then it'll make you feel better. Yeah.
We have a question from Dr. Morgan. How can we connect the individual efforts with the larger scale efforts? To any of you guys, this is to all panelists, so I'm interested to see like what you guys think. How do you think these individual efforts connect together to the larger effort?
So I think with this, you can start with thinking of the larger vision and the end goal. Like, for example, to reach 2 degrees Celsius or under, like not letting the temperature change go above 2 degrees Celsius, and then breaking it down into what are the individual steps that countries can take? What are the steps that states can take, that cities can take, that localities can take, that each person can take? So we're already doing that, where we have these larger goals that we want to reach, and then at smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller scales, people are taking steps to help us reach that big goal. And then that applies to many different situations, like reaching, becoming a net zero carbon city, or having, being able to recycle 100% of your recyclables.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna mention that like the power of social pressures and the power and like your consumer power, like being a consumer, my dollar matters. Where it's like if you don't want to support people, or like if you get a bunch of people in an area and like say like a classroom, for example, or a university, and you push the idea of using not like renewable water bottles, like a metal water bottle, and everybody in the classroom has one, you're not going to want to be the guy that brings a plastic water bottle to class, because of the ideals and the values that campus has. As well as if you push your family to start buying more like reusable products, and you get them to buy more plant-based things instead of meat, if that's what you want, then you're using your dollar and your purchasing power to create a more healthy bottom-up approach to changing and getting what you want from your environment and your society.
And I would say the more complicated answer kind of touches on scaling projects, and that requires financial resources or connections. And I would say for that, it's always really nice to start building connections with your local organizations or people who are doing cool things in a space that you want to go. So let's say you want to get involved in plastics, in the plastic space, right? And then you learn about somebody, let's say at Ocean Conservancy, who does it. Don't be afraid to reach out and start building the network and connections. And then, little by little, you'll have the opportunity to get even more resources to get to that larger goal, right?
I think a big thing too that folks can do to connect to the global is, continuing to educate yourself on, the ways that our current systems are broken. And Mitch, I totally hear you about, changing individuals and having individual pressure, but also, as we saw in the film, when our lovely narrator was on the plane drinking from his plastic cup, where we're pretty married to the systems that we're a part of. And I think there's a lot of uneducation that we need to do. And so I think continuing to educate yourself to see what your place in these failed systems is definitely vitally important, and can connect you to some really global problems, but also help you figure out how you can solve it on a local or individual scale.
I think that's a great point, touching on systemic issues or normally practiced behaviors, like our reliance on the fossil fuel industry, for one, or other systemic issues like inequality and climate justice, and then issues of gender equality and how they all play into reaching these goals really does matter. So looking at the intersectionality of climate change with all these different topics is really important for making it possible for everyone to take individual steps and making it possible for efforts to be taken at a larger scale involving people from various economic backgrounds and geographical backgrounds as well.
Going off the last 2 points, I think the main thing that we can do is make sure that everybody has a voice and that everybody can get that voice out there. So a lot of that stems from educating people on different politicians and what those politicians stand for, and then getting those people to the polls and voting, because I know we have a big problem in the United States with voter suppression. So I think a lot of our problems will be solved if we can kind of work towards that issue as well.
There was a question, what will be the largest challenge in attempting to combat climate change? Anybody have a quick, one-word answer to that one?
I'm going to say the economy. I think that's very important.
Making polluters pay.
Okay.
I'd say coordination. Just getting people to work together, and the logistics side of things takes up a lot more time than people think sometimes.
To build off of Pooja's point, I did have a background thought during this that just worried about how much this could divide our country, and seeing how separated things can get, how different opinions and different worries about this topic can cause a lot of conflict.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point about the politicization of topics like climate change, or even around COVID-19 and questioning of the science around it. That's something that's going to be a big hurdle, continue to be a big hurdle moving forward. And what will be really important for that is also communication and how we go about communicating these science topics and facts and to all audiences.
I think one of the biggest challenges is just going to be people, because people being so afraid of change because it's really all they know, and just to try to shift people's brain sets and minds can be difficult.
It's scary, right? Like, maybe let's get a show of hands from the panelists of who would be afraid to hop into a driverless vehicle like tomorrow if you had to do it.
Half and
That's
half.
Yeah, but it's a change, right? Like with Uber, no, you may not have thought, or maybe I didn't think, like, you know, tomorrow I'll be getting in a car with a stranger that I don't even know, sitting in his back seat going to, you know, going home. But we shifted to that, we changed. So I think humans are capable of a lot of change, given after seeing, you know, a few people try it out. I think people are going to be more willing to try out new things.
And just to add another like thought into this, we're all definitely going to have to make sacrifices here, because there are a lot of people who might, like, if electric cars or self-driving cars do happen, that means taxi drivers, Uber drivers, they're all going to be out of a job, and we're going to have to find substitutes for that. But that's just part of the process of change. And I believe that it has been hard to make change work in the past, but we're very forward thinkers as a generation now. All of the collective, everyone on this planet can be capable of change. We just have to believe that it can happen and make action towards it happening.
Really quickly, I'm just going to announce our 3 winners really quickly, and then you guys, you can keep talking for a few more minutes. But our 3 winners are Jake. Let me see. Jake Mayer, Clayton, I don't have a last name for that, and Shelby Grove. So if the 3 of you will private message me, that would be great that you heard that, and then we'll get in touch with you. I'm curious, really quickly, I was really impressed by the climate donut, the donut analogy that he had, and that was leaning towards equity and how do we make this a more equitable situation for all involved. What are your thoughts on climate change and equity? And we'll kind of end on that, I think. And any of the questions that we did not answer, I know there's one on solar panels and farms and a couple of other things. I think those might take a little longer and a little more thought. So I was going to put those out to you guys, and we can have a response for those on a blog on our website. And before they answer this, thank you all of you who came. Sorry for any technical difficulties. We did the best we can. And if you had any other technical difficulties, just get in touch with me via email and we'll figure something out for you. So equity and climate change, guys. Panel go. Anya, why don't you start?
Sure. Yeah, I talk about this all the time, so I'll take the first stab at it. But like some of my panelists have mentioned before, sorry, it's 8 p.m. and I'm losing my train of thought. But, yeah, so the issues of climate change and racial justice and social justice are so inexplicably intertwined. And so it's really important that when we're solving climate crisis, that we're also taking a really hard look at solving these other issues, because you can't have one without the other. So yeah, absolutely, you have to look at them both.
So one of the first things that comes to my mind is immediately to include these communities that are often overlooked. Like Xander was saying, it's all about giving people the voice to speak. So involving people at the decision-making tables, in policy creation, in just getting their stories out there is super important and a big important first step, as well as building trust amongst communities of color, with communities that are often neglected or left out of the conversation on climate change.
I believe that equity is a really important thing, especially with climate change. I don't think it'll ever be completely equal. Something always has to, or there always seems to be something left behind. But if we can try and make those sacrifices as little, or if we can try and diminish that to as little as possible, then we've succeeded, I believe.
My thoughts when it comes to equity is that so like everybody else has been saying, it's one of the major issues that needs to be addressed. I live in Harlem, which is a primarily African American working class community, and it's historically been very overlooked when it comes to I am losing my train of thought as well, but when it comes to basic human rights, I guess I live around many projects, and I'm constantly in contact with people who don't have the same rights that I do and live right across the street as I do, don't have access to clean water, this and that. And so I think equity really does need to be addressed, first of all, on a social level, and I think it needs to be built up to a point where we can talk about the environment, because a lot of the communities that we're discussing really don't want to jump right into saving the environment when they're facing so many other issues, I guess.
I guess my thoughts on equity and climate change is like, I live in such an environmentally privileged area, but then I see like the towns surrounding my city, and they like don't even have recycling or compost, and that's just crazy to me. And I think we all need to be equal, but we also all have to remember is that like equality is something that's going to take time, and we just have to keep that in mind, because I think a lot of times right now with the Black Lives Matter movement is we want this equality to happen instantly, and that's just not going to happen. So we have to be patient and be persistent about what we want.
I would say I disagree about patience. Like there are some things like with human rights that, like it's past the due date or past the time when everybody had equal rights. And it's something that a lot of communities just have to keep pushing for, keep advocating for on, whatever platform we all have access to until it's here. Like it needs to be demanded, like as if it was supposed to happen yesterday, because it was.
And I agree, it needs to be demanded, but it's not going to happen in the next 6 months. Like that's just not realistic
Right.
for a whole society shift. And I'm saying like I think it's going to take years for us to truly be equal. And of course, like we're never all going to be equal, but this big of a society shift can't just happen in a few months.
Very true.
For equity, I think it would be important to look at like where we're putting dumps and like where we're putting water treatment facilities, and we're not just putting them in like impoverished communities that don't really have a voice and that aren't like, they don't have like people that live there that have a lot of money, they're on government funding for welfare and stuff like that. And I think it's important to put municipal services in areas where everybody's going to benefit from it, not avoiding places where the highest bidder keeps it out